Welcome to the Nerd Journey Podcast. Our goal is to help you, the technology professional, accelerate your career progression, increase your job satisfaction, and be more effective in your existing role.
We want to bring listeners like you the career advice we wish we'd been given earlier in our careers.
I'm John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, sharing co-host duties with Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_.
We're two former IT operations guys who have moved on to pre-sales roles with technology vendors. We have our opinions, but we also like to highlight the journeys of others and see what we can learn from them.
We'd also like to ask for your feedback to make this a conversation, not a one-way broadcast. Email us at nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com or DM us at nerdjourney on Twitter. So come join us on our nerd journey.
Let's take a trip. Episode 310. Do you think the mark of a successful consultant is being able to work for yourself? David Klee is the owner of Heraflux Technologies and a veteran of the consulting industry. He would tell you, before you go out and start working for yourself, you should first learn how to become a skilled consultant and have the right kind of reputation. How do you develop that reputation? Well, this week we're going to continue our focused discussion on all the nuances of working as a consultant. If you missed part one of our discussion with David in episode 309, we defined the role of the consultant and talked about what separates the great consultants from only good consultants. We talked about managing travel and how you can be productive. And then we talked about one path into consulting, and that is as a full-time employee of a company that doesn't just do consulting or might have a consulting arm, as we'd say. This week in part two of the discussion, we'll talk about doing consulting as a contractor. What are some of the things you need to know if you decide to take that path? We'll also talk about working full-time for a consulting firm. And finally, we'll talk about working for yourself or becoming a business owner. That's exactly what David's done at Heraflux Technologies for the last 11 years. So what is it that keeps David excited about the work he's doing and excited about continuing as a consultant? Let's get you to part two of our discussion with David Klee. We touched on it slightly before. What about contracting? If I am a contractor, but I do consulting, does this mean that I have a contract with a particular recruiting firm or a company and it's a specific length of time? How does that work differently than the full-time employment?
The full-time employment, you may have a project assigned to you, which would be 40 hours a week, go. It's usually not the case. In that kind of a role, it might be 2 hours a day at X, an hour a day at Y, 30 minutes a day at Z, and things just kind of float where you're juggling anywhere from 3 or 4 to 20 projects at the same time. A contract is going to be a tightly defined scope for a block of time for either per day, per week, whatever. And it's going to run a duration such as 2 months, 6 months, a year, something like that, where you're able to refine what you do. It's generally speaking going to be a task or a set of tasks, and that's what you do. There's a lot to be said for this kind of a project simply because it's controlled. You know when it starts, you know what to expect each week, and you know when it's going to end. That's a great feeling to know because then you can start to line up the next one so that when one ends, you're ready for the next one. It also means you're not seeing as much breadth of what you're doing, but you can get really good or get even better at the things that you're tasked to do there. And it could be, I need to build a data warehouse for this particular ERP system. I know it needs to be done in 6 months. It's a 40-hour-a-week project. If they ask you to work any extra each week, there's overtime involved. Is there travel? Maybe, maybe not. Go. And it's safe. It's sustainable. When we first got started consulting for ourselves in 2013, one of the first projects I had was a 6-month contract with a group out of Connecticut. And every week I flew from Omaha, Nebraska to Connecticut and did the work. So I'd fly out on Sunday. I'd come back Thursday nights. Now, it wasn't an 8-hour day, it was like a 15, 16-hour day for each week that I was on, or for each day that I was on site. But the work got done. It actually got done a little bit early. So I was able to actually do technical presentations and kind of expand the role there, which was a lot of fun.
If someone goes to look for contract work, are they going to the same places that someone would go to search for full-time work? Like, are these generally posted on LinkedIn, on a company's career page? Do I need to specifically work through a headhunter type of firm?
It works best if you're working through a headhunting entity. So it could be, I have a contract position posted on LinkedIn or Indeed or any other site like that. A lot of those sites will also say, we have a full-time role. You need to have XYZ qualifications, whatever. The headhunter is more of a abridged version of this, where they may give you tests to say, I show skill in XYZ. Here's 10 projects that fit the bill. Here's the criteria. Which one do you want to essentially interview for? And they may have you interview with some people in-house at the headhunter. They may have you interview with the customer themselves. It's a way where instead of you looking, and there may be phantom jobs or people just fishing for who's out there, the headhunter is usually going to be a lot more serious. If it's through a headhunter, the rate might be a little bit lower than if you would go direct. However, the headhunter might also be able to provide you healthcare, because that's tied to an employer in this country. And that goes a long, long way.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, where maybe they can provide a healthcare plan for you for the 6 months or a year you're on a project, instead of you having to go to the open marketplace. Maybe they can deal with tax withholdings out of your paycheck instead of you having to put the money aside and pay for it every quarter or at the end of the year. There are some benefits like that that really do help.
Right, because this is getting paid on a 1099.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but some of them I have seen arrangements where a portion of each check goes out and they're under the corporate group healthcare plan, which really makes life easier because the marketplace is not fun.
Are there specific characteristics of these headhunter firms that people can look for?
There's going to be big names. There's national chains that do this, regional, there's local. All of them have their benefits. That's the interesting part. The national ones will be more likely to say, hey, you're based out of Omaha, Nebraska, but we've got a 40-hour-a-week contract in Raleigh, North Carolina. Would you be interested in interviewing for this thing? But it's going to be travel. And it basically means you're traveling 5 days a week to get out there and back, that sort of thing. The regional stuff will generally have regional, but it might mean it's companies that you already know. You know their reputation. You can talk to people that have worked with them or worked for the companies involved, and you may be able to get a better sense. Is it a fit for what I'm trying to do? Is it a cultural fit? Is it a people fit? Because companies have reputations. If you get to know people in a certain town, you know who to work for, you know who to don't work for. Omaha is notorious for that kind of stuff. There's benefits to both. The national chains will most certainly have more opportunities. You may have to travel for it. The regional stuff, you'll be able to get to know them a little bit better. And after enough time, they may actually know to call you if they have a project of a certain type.
Because you get more than one organization to know your reputation that way. It's not just the end client you're helping. It's this firm that helps many clients. I like that.
And there's no reason to say you only have to work with one headhunter.
This is true.
Yeah, there's a number of really good shops that I've gotten to know in the Omaha and Lincoln area. And there's no, non-compete clause in there or anything. If you're working a 40-hour project, you don't want to cancel the project to go jump to another company.
Sure.
But if a project ends and they don't have one that's right in line with what you want to do, but another headhunter does, there's nothing stopping you.
Does the headhunting firm or even a customer directly, when they do contract work, does somebody else pick up the tab for the travel if it's required, or are you expected to if you're a contractor?
It should be that they pick up the tab, because any company like that should not expect that it would be out of your pocket that you would go, burn a bunch of money on plane tickets and hotels and stuff like that. There's a lot of different ways it can work. Sometimes you have to work through them and they book all your travel, which means it's going to be the cheapest and not the most convenient. That you might be staying at the dirtbag motels with sleeping with bed bugs. you got to be careful with it. Other times they may give you a travel budget and it's up to you to figure out how to best fit that. But if you exceed it, you eat the difference. If you're under it, they pay you what you spent. Things like that.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before we hit record. Some people might do contract work in addition to their full-time job as a moonlighting type gig.
Yep. You got to be very, very careful if you want to do this. You got to make sure that your contract with your full-time job will not prohibit you from doing this kind of stuff. Some of them, it's no big deal as long as there's not a direct conflict of interest. All of them, the side stuff should never get in the way of the full-time job. There shouldn't be a conflict of interest anyway. Some companies out there, including some big ones, they'll let you moonlight as long as you disclose it and as long as there's no chance that it could ever conflict and hurt the mission of the full-time job. And honestly, it's a great way to do this kind of stuff, but you got to make sure that they don't expect you to be available during normal business hours. And for a lot of these companies, that's hard because if they want you to do work, they're not going to probably want to pick up the phone at 8 o'clock at night when you finally get home from a long day at the day job to talk to you about something that they really wanted fixed at noon. But, if it's, I'm doing remote DBA work and I'm doing index tuning or custom programming for somebody, that should be fine. You just got to make sure they're okay with it.
And in terms of stability of contract work and the volume of that based on the economic cycle we're in, do you see the amount of contract openings actually go down when the economy goes down, or is it pretty level all the time?
It will ebb and flow, usually with what the economy is doing. A lot of companies out there, in the event of an economic downturn, which we're kind of seeing right now, not kind of, we are, a lot of them will actually pause projects where they have external people working on them, or they'll slow them down. Maybe it was a 40-hour-a-week thing, now it's a 20-hour-a-week, because they've changed their expectations internally and stuff can be delivered later because it's okay. They want to cut some cost. There's one really large fast casual food chain that we used to work with. 3/4 of their IT staff were contractors and consultants. In the event of an economic challenge, they would either pause or suspend those projects. They never once had to lay off a full-time person because of it. And it's really admirable. And they disclose this when you're looking to get a contract with them. And there's no bait and switch with any of this stuff. They know if you're in here on a year project and something changes in the economy, you can be cut in a week or two's notice. It wasn't day of, but there's always some window of time in there where we may stop what you're doing in 30 days, suspend it indefinitely, nothing personal, but we're slowing it down.
That's a fair point that people should consider. So even if I do a 6-month contract, or that's what I signed up for, it could still be cut short if there's some kind of compelling event for whomever opened that contract requisition.
Yeah. A lot of people I knew were on contracts during 9/11. Boom. A lot changed. And these folks, projects were just done. Within a couple of days, a whole bunch of stuff changed. A lot of people were out of work. Now, it didn't last that long, thankfully, for them. But there's always a clause in there that says these contracts can be terminated at will. An example of this, I was leading a team of a bunch of people doing data center migrations for SQL servers at a very large airline. We started in roughly June of 2019. March 15, 2020, I get an email at 10 o'clock in the morning saying, stop what you're doing, document everything you can through the end of the day. That's it.
Wow.
Because the airlines shut down, it was cost savings panic mode, and every external project with external people suspended immediately.
If you're someone who's done a lot of contracting, but then you try to go and work for one of these companies full time, how's that looked at from a hiring manager perspective? Any take on that?
I don't see it as a bad thing, to be honest. In terms of, hiring manager, it would really depend. Why are they doing this? Was it they kept getting fired from projects, made a bad reputation for themselves, and no headhunter wanted to work with them? Or is it they want benefits? Healthcare in this country is a big deal. Wanting a 401k, wanting paid days off. There's nothing wrong with wanting any of those things.
No.
Those are a lot of reasons why a lot of folks get out of consulting and go back to being an FTE. There's stability, there's job security, there's benefits. If you're tired of the constant churn of different projects, you now have a controlled environment and you know what you're working with there. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I know some people, they just love contract work and that's their thing. They like the swapping to other projects. Is the interview cycle for contract work, does that tend to be shorter than becoming a full-time employee?
A little bit. Depends on who you're interviewing with. Some of the full-time employee discussions, you could have 5 or 6 interviews before you get the job. Because they're trying to make sure, are you a cultural fit in addition to a technical fit?
Right.
Contract work, I would say, in my opinion, that they're a little less concerned about the culture and more concerned about the ability to get the job done. So as long as you're able to prove that you know what you're doing in terms of getting the job done, they may be less likely to push hard on the other areas and just say, hey, this person can do the work. Even if we lock them in a room with caffeine all day, they'll get it done. You may have 2 interviews instead of 3 or 4 or 5. And then in my perspective, for what we do over here, my average interview, pre-sales call, however you want to look at it, I've got a reputation in the industry, thankfully, and we do good work and people like it. So our average interview / pre-sales call, 30 minutes to an hour, and then it's either a fit or it's not on both sides. And then we go to the paperwork piece.
Wow.
People know what we do. And by the time it gets to us, they know we're qualified for what they're going to ask us to do. The question is, how long is it going to take? When are we going to start? Thankfully, after being in business 11 years, we've finally gotten to that point where, we can say, yeah, we can do this. And we can because you know us.
Yep. And we're back to the reputation of the consultant, just like we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Another option for people besides working for a full-time employer that has a consulting business, but it's not their full business. And then there's contracting. But the next option is working for a group that is an established consulting firm. That is what they do. That is their main business, route to market, whatever you want to call it. Are there specific things to look out for if you're seeking a consulting firm?
Absolutely. 1, what's their reputation like? Ask people around town. What do you know about these folks? Talk to some of the other consultants. Are they happy? Are they easy to work for? Are the kind of projects bait and switch? Or do the projects line up to be, hey, we were tasked to do X, Y, Z, and that's the way it worked out, and everybody's happy? That's the biggest stuff. Is it really what it's baked out to be? And what's the caliber of their clients? Because it could be, I'm a consultant, but I only work with uneducated 2-person shops, and yet I'm expected to do all this stuff. And it's a real challenge because they don't know how to actually do what their side of the bargain is supposed to be. A lot of the same stuff with the company that does some consulting and some other stuff. What kind of travel? Are you going to be on call? What's the breadth of customers you're working with? And how many customers and projects would you expect to be working on a week? Some places could be 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, no big deal. Other places, especially if they do remote managed services, you may be working on 20 customers in one day. Are you okay with context switching like that? And it's interesting. And then with that kind of a group, are you in part responsible for having to help sell the work?
Right.
So now, are you part of the pre-sales as well as part of delivery? And what's that split look like?
And should you target a consulting firm that has one specific niche? Or do you want to look at firms that have a wide number of areas that they consult in?
If a consulting company has a super tight niche, are they changing with the times? It gets really interesting. If the company has enough business to do X, Y, Z, and that is all they do, and then some revolutionary technology comes out of the woodwork, and guess what? They're done. Guy I knew in college, he was one of the most gifted Adobe Flash people I have ever met. Where's Flash today?
Exactly.
And that was all he wanted to work on. He didn't want to know HTML. He didn't want to know CSS. Didn't want to know any of that. It was just Flash, and he was good. And he was in college and had a sports car and he was great at it. 5 years later, he just didn't want to keep up. The next thing you know, he's just picking up scraps to help people get off of Flash, to help understand what they actually had. It was interesting. The range of questions to ask is, what are you going to be expected to do? How much travel? The on-call piece it's really worse than it sounds. With pretty much every place I've ever worked, I was basically on call 24/7, including all major holidays, birthdays, everything. Are they going to actually push that? Do they say they're not, but they actually are?
What constitutes a call that you'll actually answer?
Yeah, and if you need to actually take some time off for a real vacation, will they call you on the vacation? Are you expected to check your email on the vacation? To me, that's not a vacation.
It's definitely not.
Yeah. What are they going to do to help keep you current on technology? Is it they're just going to require that you maintain some certifications that anybody reading a cheat sheet can go pass? Are they going to send you to conferences? Are they going to give you time each week for professional development? All this stuff, it's a lot to it. And a lot of them expect that you're going to keep up with it on your own, and they don't encourage it, let alone support it. Other ones, fantastic at it. A lot of the people in the SQL Server community that I know, you want to go to a SQL Saturday event or a conference? Great. We'll send you first class so you're not tired when you get there. We'll make sure that you don't have customer obligations for the entire week so you can network and get to know all these things. You want books? Great. We'll drop ship them in by the ton. Whatever you want to do to keep up on this stuff, because they benefit, you benefit, you're happier. You're not going to jump ship to somebody else that's going to do this.
Because it benefits the consulting firm, whoever they are, whatever they do, for all their employees to get better, stay current, and just grow their expertise, because it grows your bench. I mean, I guess it could make people more expensive to the consulting firm at the same time if you're looking at it from that side.
But they can also bill more for that person because they can do more.
Yeah.
And they can justify billing more. And they can bill a lot more than they're paying the consultant.
Do consultants usually have insight into how much their time is being billed for compared to how much they actually make? And I'm just wondering if that is something that you could keep track of as a consultant to justify, okay, you need to give me a raise because you're billing more for my time now.
It's rare. It's very rare. When I was consulting for somebody else, I would always see the technical details of the paperwork. Mm-hmm. I would never see the money side. So you knew what companies were capable of charging. You never knew what they were actually doing. And then there's one extra layer in there. Let's say your parent company that you work for is a subcontractor under somebody else. How much are they marking up what your company charges them? And sometimes the markup can be really considerable.
Is it actually a safer choice to work for a company whose main business model is consulting and it's not just something they do in addition to selling technology?
Standard DBA answer, it depends. If you're working for a company whose sole mission is consulting, that's their revenue stream. If you're working for a company who sells software and then consults on the software, if things slow down, they still have the revenue stream from selling the software. So in that route, that's the safer route. However, if a company is solely purposed with selling you and they're good and the rates are reasonable and they know how to market, you shouldn't be concerned because they should have enough in the coffers to say, hey, if we don't have a project for you for a couple weeks, it's okay. We've got the money banked and we got another one coming soon.
And is there a natural graduation of one of these three options? Is there a natural process that I might go through as I go throughout my career through those three? There's one more, but I want to save that for just a minute.
If you are a full-time employee of a company that does more than just consulting, I know it seems weird, but I don't see a lot of people getting out of those roles too frequently.
Okay.
If you are contracting, generally speaking, you're content with it, or you hope you are, and you stay contract to contract to contract, and you're okay. If you're a consultant working for another company that solely does consulting, you either rise through the ranks and outgrow consulting, which sounds weird, or you get tired of the grind and you go to contracting or full-time employer somewhere, or jump to do your own thing.
Would you say that you should only jump to do your own thing if one of those other three things is not an option? Or is there a legitimate reason to just go for it and do your own thing?
I would say you should do one of the other three to prepare you to be a consultant for yourself. Because being a consultant for yourself, where you work multiple projects, you are responsible for marketing and pre-sales and delivery and all the paperwork and all this other stuff. And the projects don't necessarily last as long as if you're on a contract.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be ready for that. And you need to understand how to sell, how to talk, how to deliver. And I hate to sound like a used car salesman. You got to know how to upsell, because you need to know where your next project is coming from. And it's not the upsell in the used car salesperson traditional sense, but if you're working a project and you see gaps and holes in something, you need to know to say, hey, I know how to help you with this other thing. Why don't we grow this project and let me help you with that in addition to what you've already got me on here for? Or here's this thing. Here's this other thing. You need this. I know how to do it. Let me finish up this current thing. Let's do the next one.
Yeah. What you're looking for is you're looking for other problems you can solve.
Yep. And it's other problems that you can solve that you know how to do. And you have to know how to say, I'm better than the other people at being able to solve this problem. And I already know you. I already know your environment. I'm better suited to solve this because I'm already here.
And I think people, they'll certainly, if nothing else, appreciate you pointing out, hey, here's a gap and I think we can fill it. They may or may not say yes. But to your point, if you're making money for yourself and your business from consulting, certainly you would have your eyes open for more consulting opportunities. You have to, or you won't survive.
Exactly. We're at a point with the business where I'd like to think we do good work. And if people like us, they call us back. And because I've trained them how to do this stuff internally, they generally don't call us back for the same thing, but they have other challenges or other new things come up. And most of our work comes from word of mouth or repeat business.
Back to reputation.
Yep. But the hard part is, how do you get the reputation? Consult for somebody else, get the contracts and get to know people and put yourself out there.
You have to build it.
The biggest fallacy is that you might be good at something technically, and a lot of people, I don't know where they get it from, but they seem to think that they can just hang a sign on their front door that says, I'm good and I'm open for business, and that people just come flooding in.
Yeah.
It unfortunately doesn't work like that. And boy, I wish it did, because that would cut down a lot of paperwork over here.
Of course.
But that's what a lot of folks think. And then they go 6 months and they're barely making minimum wage or less. People run into trouble with that. And it's tough. They're honestly in a shock state. It's like, I'm good. I know what I'm doing. Why can't I get the projects? Like, people don't know that you're there.
And all that stuff you mentioned about doing the presentations, going to the user groups, that's good marketing. I know we've seen a lot of layoffs in our industry, right? A lot of people are asking, well, what should I do? I've just been laid off. One of my number one tips, go to a user group that fits your interest area, whether you think you wanted to do it or not. Just go talk to people, meet them, find out about what they're doing. Why do they like their job? Why they get into it? What keeps them there? What are they learning? Tell them what you're trying to do, what you're interested in, and who knows who they might be able to connect you with.
Yeah. We just got a project with a state government entity literally a month ago because I did a training class ahead of a SQL Saturday in 2016.
Wow.
7 years, almost 8 years. And he remembered. And I guess I stood out because he just said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And I've got kind of a weird memory, so I actually remembered him. It's like, you were in Washington. I remember you. That was awesome. How can I help you? Hey, we need you to look at a virtual environment. We've got an availability group that's unstable. Everything's okay. And great. Figured it out. But it's that word of mouth, reputation right there. He remembered.
Wow. Building the reputation. If I'm the consulting firm owner, I've gone into business for myself. I've hopefully developed a reputation. Business is going well. If I'm looking to expand the firm and I need to hire more people, Is it more attractive for me as the owner to hire a contractor, a full-time employee? What do you think?
As somebody who has been down that road, it varies. How's your project flow? Meaning, do you have enough incoming revenue where you can pay for this person and potentially train the person to get them to the point where they can deliver the projects? And knowing what you know about a given role that you want, can you find somebody to fill it? And then can you actually charge that? Do you have enough money in the bank to say, if I can't find a project to keep this person busy, how can I actually cover the cost that I need to hire them? Because take whatever you think you make, the employer's paying about 40% more between healthcare and taxes and all that stuff. So they got to be able to cover that bill. And some people are not cheap. The way I have started working, I will leverage subcontractors who I've known for years that are really, really good at what they do. And I pay more per hour for them, but I don't have to pay to keep them on the bench if I don't have a project for them. And I don't have to pay benefits. And the flip side is I can't exactly dictate their time. I can't say, you must be on a call tomorrow at 9 a.m. I can say, can you be on a call at 9 a.m. tomorrow? And that's the opposite side of that. So if a project that you're working on or the kind of work that you do is flexible and you can work around everybody's schedule and kind of meet in the middle, subs are great. There's a lot of great people out there that are independent. And it goes back to, who do you know that does this stuff? Are they available? That kind of stuff. But that's what I've done over here. We tried going the full-time employee route. Didn't work out. People got poached. Great folks. Now we've got this ring of contractors and consultants that we work with, where if I need somebody for 8-10 hours on this or that, we've all got the paperwork with each other so we can just pull each other in as our schedules allow and just help each other out.
If you, as the consulting firm owner, were to interview someone new, right? Let's say they're outside your subcontracting ring. You want to determine if maybe they're a good fit for you to use in the future. What are some of the characteristics that you would look for in having a consultant come and work for you? We talked about the consultant and how they might conduct their interviews of their customers, but I'm just really curious from a hiring perspective, if you're hiring a consultant to work for your firm, are there some different qualities and characteristics that you might look for?
I look for people that genuinely love what they do. It shows in the work, shows in what you pay them, but I ask questions like, how much of your free time do you spend keeping up on this stuff? Tell me the last new technology that was foreign to you that you picked up and learned, and how long did it take you, and why did you do it? What kind of a home test lab do you have? Not, do you have one? And it could be as simple as, I got a laptop and I can run Docker on there. Great. It tells me you want to know this stuff. Name people in the industry who publicize how-tos and training videos and blog posts. Tells me they're keeping up on this stuff. Tell me the last time you did a technical presentation. What was the topic? How many people were there? Did you enjoy it? What did you learn from doing the presentation? What could you have done better on the presentation? And when are you giving it again so I can watch you do it?
That's when you hope you have the video link to send, right?
Yes. It's proof. Because it's trust but verify.
Of course.
And that's the kind of stuff that I look for. It's quite literally, how long have you been working in this? And why are you in this industry? Is it something you enjoy? Or is it, yeah, I make money? That's not the kind of people I personally like to work with, because then they're the ones where you say, I've got massive database corruption that I've never seen before. It's Friday at 4:00. I hate to ask, are you available tonight to help me work through this? And, if they say no, but I'm at a funeral, no problem. Or yeah, I can bump a family weekly meal, spouse can make some food. I'll dive into this with you because I've never seen it before. We're a team effort, that kind of stuff. And, it's not that I try to bother people with that kind of stuff, but
yeah,
I want to fix this. It's that want to know, the want to fix, the drive to do better and learn and grow and contribute. That's what I look for.
Have you ever had anybody that you've spoken to struggle to articulate why they're working in this industry or why they're doing the job as a consultant?
I have. Some of the people mean well, But if they can't tell me why they want to be or stay as a consultant, it tells me they may not be really invested into it. So they're just there on a 9-to-5 basis. And for some jobs, that's perfectly fine. It really is. If I need an operations person to keep the lights on, keep the stuff running, that's fine. But if I need somebody to say, we've always done it this way, but here's a new way, and it's a better way, and I figured out how to do this, that's what I want.
I like that. To find a better way, just like you talked about before.
Do you enjoy finding a better way? I think that's the one succinct statement I can say right there that makes a great consultant instead of a good consultant.
You've obviously enjoyed finding a better way since you've been in consulting for so long. So you've been a business owner, you've done the consulting thing for another company, you've done it at your company. How do you keep the enjoyment there despite the stress, the frustration, and all the obligations?
It's a great question. I like doing new stuff. I get bored easily. Go figure. To me, to be able to say, I am consulting on XYZ, but there's an emerging thing. I want to know how to do this better. So as a consultant, you can choose to spend non-billable time that's business oriented. For example, I had done a lot with VMware. I'd done a lot with Hyper-V. I'd done a lot with Nutanix. Okay, well, it's time to dive into more of the KVM variants to not say anyone's better than anyone else, but to expand the horizons. So I cleared out 2 weeks out of my calendar and dove in. And as a full-time employee, you probably don't get that opportunity. But to be able to say, here's a new technology, I think it can complement what I do and adapt and grow and broaden what I do and sharpen what I do. Because the more you know the failings and the positive things about the stuff that you already do. And database technologies, infrastructure, cloud, they're more tools for the toolbox. It makes you a better consultant because then you can say, you were going down the rabbit hole on this particular project and you shouldn't go in this direction because X, Y, Z. You will encounter these. If you kind of course correct a little bit, you'll end up in this other spot, and here's why it's better. That's one of the big things for me. The other ability to be able to say no. It's a hard lesson to learn as a consultant, but sometimes saying no means you won't end up on a project where you're destined to fail because they didn't give you all the details or they're not holding up their end of the bargain on a given project. I know it sounds kind of jaded, but there are times where the project changes mid-flight and maybe or maybe not, you can do something about it. The consultant, you can say no. The contractor, you may have to work out the remainder of the contract, but you know it'll end at some point. Being an FTE or a consultant for somebody else, you may be kind of stuck, which that's difficult. The biggest thing for me is that if you're willing to put in the effort and work it, and it works, you're doing this for you. You're not doing it for somebody else. You're not making a $10,000 bonus when you just made $2 million more for the company at the end of a year because you know how to work the work and sell the projects. It's a massive shift, and it's not why you want to do it, but at the same time, if it works, that is a good motivator because you're the one building the reputation for you. You're the one building the professional contacts that stick with you through thick and thin. It's for you, and you can enjoy it, and you can't trade that for anything.
Yeah, and in the same light, you wouldn't jeopardize any of those things by hiring the wrong person to help you, which is why you have a very good and thorough vetting process like you described before.
Yep. You don't bring on the wrong person. You don't take on the wrong project. And quite frankly, you don't keep the customer if the customer has changed how they operate and they're no longer a good fit for you. You can say no. It's powerful.
Yeah, finding the right fit.
It's hard.
That has to be hard to learn.
It's a journey. And it's a continual process because a company may be perfect for you. And then there's a leadership change, a year, 2, 5, whatever, and everything changes. Or a company that you're contracting with can get bought and the leadership changes and the culture changes. All of these are things that have happened to me. some of them recently. And it's fascinating. But the biggest power you have is you can say no. It's empowering. It builds confidence. It strengthens your convictions on why you continue to do this. Because after being in business for 11 years and being in consulting for 14, will I ever go back to working for anybody else? No way. I'm having too much fun.
I imagine that you saying no as someone who makes their business being a consultant, and you're talking to someone about a consulting gig or statement of work, and you saying, no, we just can't do that. That might be hard for the person on the other end to hear and somewhat unexpected.
It is. I'm not exaggerating this. I had to do this with an existing client. Today's Wednesday. I did it Monday afternoon. I don't like doing that, but there was a project that we decided that the agreements had ended and we were not going to renew for a lot of different factors. And it's a hard one. And they didn't see it coming. It didn't go over too well, but they understood why, which I appreciate. They didn't try to argue. They didn't try to yell and scream like some people might. We're all professionals and adults, but it's a hard task. But sometimes you have to exercise that right.
As we get close to landing the plane here, David, I have one more question. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you still go into business for yourself?
Yes, without hesitation.
Would you have done it earlier?
Yes. Not too much earlier, but earlier. Probably 2 years earlier. And a lot of that is because I'm having too much fun. I know it sounds cliche, but most of my day is solving problems for folks. Today, I found a SQL server that had 10 cores and everybody was screaming that it was slow. And I found out one dumb setting in a virtualization environment meant they were only using 4 of the 10 CPUs. While we were recording this, an email came in. They flipped the switch to fix it. So tomorrow should be game-changing for the entire business. And we're talking point of sales being more responsive, website being more responsive for all the people using it, contractors in the morning wanting to pick stuff up, don't have to wait in the cash register as long. Everybody helps with that. Other things, we did some virtualization capacity work where we reduced the SQL Server licensing footprint by $31 million.
That's incredible.
That's massive. We did tuning work for a vehicle company. Wall Street picked up on the results that we did, and it added over $500 million to the valuation of the company.
Wow.
Call me weird. I know we're unsung heroes in IT, all of us. I get a personal thrill out of being able to make that kind of a difference. Even if it's saving somebody 10 grand on database licensing or making this report that they have to run every single day over lunch and it takes forever to run, to be able to make that run quick, they curse the machine less and they can do more of the job that they enjoy. And that's fun. I thoroughly enjoy that.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come be back with us. Where can people find you, David, if they want to follow up on this conversation?
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. If you go out to heraflux.com or davidklee.net or find me on LinkedIn with David A. Klee, happy to not do a used car salesman type of approach. And it's always fun to talk professional development like this. It's fun to talk geek stuff. If we can help you, great. If not, it's good to meet people.
Well, thank you again, David. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. I can't wait for the next one.
Likewise. I loved hearing about how David assesses consulting talent, especially the people he's planning to possibly work with as contractors. Asking people why they got into this industry, what keeps them here, the things they're learning, how much they enjoy it, it gives you a feel for, one, whether they're the kind of people that you would want to hang out with and work with, but also it gives you some insight into whether this person is highly likely to remain valuable in our industry over time. And if you're someone like David who owns a consulting firm and has agreements with contractors, you want to work with people who are going to maintain their value so that it continues to provide value to you as a business owner and to any customers and clients that you're serving. But I actually think some of these questions would be fun to ask a coworker you've never asked before, just to get some feedback from them. And it might explain a little bit about what you perceive their motivations to be. Perhaps the things they're learning about are very different than what they do. You never know. David talked about upselling, and I don't think this is something that's exclusive to people who can sell a product or a service. I actually think that full-time employees of any company do this all the time. We spot something else that needs to be fixed or something that's interesting, and we end up getting this scope creep of a project that was originally a certain size and it ends up getting bigger. But we often do this not to sell a product or a service, but it might be to provide extra value to the company. It might be to show that we're taking initiative. It might actually be something to help you gain expertise in a new area. Upselling generally means that someone will pay more. So if you're an employee of a company, a full-time employee of a company, it just means you'll spend more time on this project that got bigger because you did some upselling on something that was interesting. Because you may have to sell the idea of spending more time on something to your management to be able to justify that, especially in roles where you don't really have control of the workload coming at you. That's where a skill like upselling could be very valuable. And I hope that if you do decide to do that, oh, there's this other thing we could fix. What will it do? What value will it provide? Will it save money? Will it save time? Will it decrease risk for your company? Make sure and give those details to someone else if you are asking to do that as part of your role in IT operations or whatever it is you might be doing. If you liked hearing about the role of the consultant, we can certainly share all the episodes that have that tag with you, but let me point out a few that might be of interest. In episode 297, we spoke to Tad Reeves, and he's someone who's done a lot of contract work. He talked about why he enjoyed doing contract work, the benefits that it provided to him, and then he spoke about a time when it no longer made sense because of some of the life circumstances he had. That's a good one to go back to. There's also episode 278 with Marnie Coffey. She spoke about the glamour of being a consultant, a little bit about why she didn't like it, and how that actually made her a better people manager later on in her career. We spoke to Dale McKay in episode 289 and Eric Gross in episode 295, both of which gave their take on what it means to be a consultant and how you can be successful in that role. In episode 271, we spoke to Justin Kelly. He's someone who's done moonlighting work, contract work, and now owns his own business, Secure Bearing. Another recent discussion was with Abby Clobridge in episodes 292 and 293. She's the owner of Fire Oak Strategies, someone who owns her own consulting firm as well. What did you find most interesting and attractive about the life of a consultant? Please rate us 5 stars and write a review on Apple Podcasts with the answer, or shoot us an email, nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Catch you next time.
Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White at BJourneyman, for Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.